Okay, so as I said, I just selected everything and moved it down so I could have some room to work with here. Now I'm going to create a title, all right? To create a title in Premiere Pro, what you do is you go to File, New, Legacy Title. Now what they want you to do now, instead of using this tool, is to use Photoshop, all right? They want you to just create your graphic in Photoshop and just bring it in here. But this is an internal tool that's inside of Premiere Pro. So I'm just going to leave it as Title 1 and click OK. And now I have this little template here. Over here is my toolbar, and here is my workspace, and I think I want more room. Well, I want to let me move. There we go. I want more room because I want to be able to see these. There we go. Okay, so to create text for a title, you click the text tool, which is this one. And you click and you type in whatever you want to type. And then you can move it by selecting the Move tool. I want everything to be centered here, so there's a center tool which is right here. This centers it vertically, this centers it horizontally, all right? I'm just going to move that up some. And I'm going to just type something else now. I'm going to click again. This creates another text box. And I'm just going to leave everything in this text box. And because I have this text box selected now, I can click center, and that'll center everything in that text box, right? Then I'm going to click again, and I'm going to type in the date, the month, and the year. And I'm going to make sure that everything is centered by clicking them all and clicking this center tool. And now, once I've created text, I can change anything about the text over here on the right when I have it selected. Here is the properties of the font itself, the size of it, the leading and the kerning. The kerning is the space between letters. I think the leading is the space between lines. There's all sorts of other things that I can change in here. I can make it all caps if I want to. I can change the color by clicking the little swatch here. So I'm going to just play around with these settings here a little bit. Maybe change the font. You don't want too many fonts. I say probably no more than 2. And then just play around with the spacing and make sure everything's centered. Like so. All right. So you can also add like a stroke and a drop shadow and all that kind of stuff here. You can play around with any of this. There are also pre-made styles right here. Any of these, okay? But whatever you do, after you're done, all you do is just X out, it saves it automatically. Here's my new title right here. It's right here in my bin. If I want to edit it, all I got to do is double click it. Okay? Now this is a picture. This is not a video. It's just a picture. See? If I put it up there in my video track 2 and play, it'll just be right there. Notice that I can also have it overlap the scene, see? Which I will probably do. But not too much. Excuse me, I got a cough. Is everybody with me so far? That's easy, right? Okay. Now we're going to animate this thing. Now, when I select it, if I come over here to the source monitor, which is this area here on the left-hand side, one of the tabs up there is Effect Controls. If I click that, here is where the motion is, and the opacity, and the time remapping. Time remapping is where I can speed up or slow down the video, okay? What I'm going to animate is the position and the opacity of this. I could animate the scale or the rotation. I can animate anything in here. All right? So I'm going to start with the title off the screen. I want it to scroll up from the bottom. Now, under position, we have two numbers. One is X and one is Y. X is first. So this is X and Y. So what I want to animate is the Y position. Does that make sense? Notice how when I hover over these blue numbers, I get a different cursor. That means I can click and drag and change that value. I'm going to put it down below here because I want it to come up like this. I'm going to put it down below and start it there. Now, whenever you want to animate something, you have to turn on the animation of it. To do that, you click this little watch. If you see a watch next to a parameter, that means you can animate it. So I'm going to click the watch, and that creates my first keyframe, which is right there. You can barely see it. And now I need to change the time because we're going to change this value over time. I'm going to move my time slider or my playhead forward a little bit. And I can move it here or I can move it here, same difference. And then I'm going to change the value so that it scrolls up into the middle of the screen. And when I do, notice it creates another keyframe automatically there, right? So now when I push play, it animates up, but it's a little fast. How can I slow this down? Anybody? Yep. I move the keyframes further apart, and that will slow it down. And that's about what I want. I think maybe a little bit slower. So what I want is I want this thing to come up like that and stay there, and then I want it to fade out as the film starts. So to make it fade out, I'm going to have it fade out starting about here. So I'm going to move my time slider or my playhead right here. And now I'm going to animate the opacity. To animate the opacity, I click the watch. That creates my first keyframe. And then I move forward to where I want it to be not visible anymore, which is maybe here. And then I click on that value, and I can just click and type and make it 0. So this is what we got so far. See? Now, wouldn't it be nice if instead of the film just popping into view like that, if we could fade that in as the text fades out? I can do that. All I got to do is click that clip. Now I've got its effect controls here, and I'm going to start that clip at 0 opacity. So I'm going to click and change that to 0 because I'm going to keyframe it from 0 to 100. And I'm going to click the watch. There's my first keyframe. So now as this comes up, at this point right here, I want it to be 100. Is everybody with me on that? So this is what that looks like. See? Isn't that nice?
So, how's it up? What?
Now at the end, wherever you are at the end, I don't know how this thing ends. I think it ends where he walks up to the stretcher, I think. Must be this one. So like at this point right here, he's just walking up to the stretcher, right? So let's say that that is our last clip. And I'm going to put that, just going to put that here so I can show you what that looks like, all right? So now at this point here, I can probably fade out. So I'm going to select that clip, go to the Effect Controls tab, click the opacity watch, and that sets my first keyframe. And then I'm going to fade out. Move the time slider or the playhead forward and change that value to 0. And that's what this looks like. Now, isn't that better than your film just ending abruptly? Yes? So what I expect you to do is to add these two things that I've just showed you to your video scene today. And starting on Wednesday, we will start something new in video editing. Got it? All right. So let's do it. And I'm here for questions.